A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, an epic saga unfolded. Welcome to our journey into the heart of Star Wars Episode IV, A New Hope. Join us as we explore the thrilling adventures of Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, and Han Solo as they battle against the evil Empire. From lightsaber duels to daring escapes, get ready to embark on a thrilling space adventure like no other. So grab your lightsaber and buckle up for a deep dive into the Force. This is Star Wars, The Force Awakens.
It completely. But the plans got sent to Princess Leia ownership. How is she? A princess? She was adopted by a senator. More mom was a queen, not of that planet. Shut up. Sounds cooler. Cool name for a cool head. So, an empire. Star destroyers. After the rebel ship, they receive the plans and they decide to board it and physically take the plans instead of just blowing up the ship. Because then the story would be over if they did that. Leg gets the plans and gives them the R2-D2 along with a message. Darth Vader boards the ship and questions some guy where the plans are. Well, he doesn't like that he's lying, so he kills them before he can answer all his questions. And then he tells the stormtroopers he wants all the passengers alive. R2 and C-3PO get into an escape pod, but no one shoots down because they think the escape pod malfunctioned during the attack. Plus, there's no life forms on board, so they don't want to waste the bullets, which are lasers. The stormtroopers capture Leia and take her to Darth Vader. Can't, he tells his daughter no. And since she's a senator, he's been around her a few times at least. And not once did the Emperor or Vader see her growing up and be like, oh, when was your daughter born? About the same time Padme died. But she's not scared of him at all. They can't find the plans on the ship and realize they must be on the escape pod, so they need to send somebody down to Tatooine to retrieve them. R2 and 3 bio-separate? Despite R2 being like, hey Dick, I've been here before and I know where I'm going. But they both end up getting kidnapped by Jawas, a group of hoarders on Tatooine. The Jawas are going to sell them to Luke and his uncle Owen, who doesn't even recognize either one of them, even after living with 3PO for years. Luke has to give him a sponge bath and ends up finding away his message to Obi-Wan. Luke sees his sister and thinks she's hot and wants to help her. You tricks Luke into removing the restraining bull by saying it will play more of the video, which this hormonal teenage boy is very interested in. But like any time a boy thinks he has some alone time, someone calls for him and he storms off giving 3PO orders to get the video working by the time he gets back. He tells his aunt and uncle that he thinks R2 belonged to a guy named Ben Kenobi because Obi-Wan didn't change his or Luke's last name when they went to Tatooine. But Luke Lars would sound pretty stupid. They tell Luke that that guy's a weirdo, and to stay away. Owen also tells them that he needs to hold off on signing up to be an army pilot for another year so he can farm water. Amaru says that he's like his dad, and she means but Owen thinks she means. Luke returns to find out R2 has taken off to find Obi-Wan. And it's a good thing that he can't fly anymore because they're able to follow his tracks in the morning as they find R2. Some Sam people attack. Does he kill them all like his daddy did? No. He gets knocked out and they folders crap. But then Obi-Wan shows up and makes a full Mondo mating call that scares them away. Luke is clearly moving when he touches his forehead, so we have to assume he's using the Force to heal him. Luke wakes up and tells him about the message to Obi-Wan, who admits who he is but doesn't recognize R2, who was his best friend's droid and saved his life on multiple occasions. They gather C-3PO, who's moping like a teenage emo chick, and go back to Obi-Wan's place. Obi-Wan tells him that he was a Jedi Knight with his dad. He must think that that's the coolest thing ever. Nope. He has no reaction. But remember that Tatooine wasn't part of the Republic, so they don't have much reason to talk about Jedi, and Owen and Bruce aren't going to bring them up. So why does Luke want to join a rebellion if they're not part of the Republic? Well, they weren't part of the Republic, but they're definitely part of the Empire, because Imogen came back to fix some stuff. But the real question is, how does the rebellion have an academy that some farmer can just submit an application to but the Empire can't find their base? Haven't they heard of spies? So Obi-Wan gives Luke an Anakin's lightsaber. But I do remember Anderson saying, make sure my son gets this while he was on fire. He also tells them the Anaconda was killed by Darth Vader because he can't tell them your dad turned evil and murdered a bunch of children. And Obi-Wan tells Luke that he needs to learn the ways of the Force if he's going to come with them, but fails to mention it's to help his sister. But he could be trying not to say that his dad might have just murdered his twin sister. Luke wants to go, but Owen would be mad at him, so he just offers them a ride. Like he's some random hitchhiker on the Death Star. We find out that the Senate didn't like that they supposedly killed Leia, so the Emperor fired them all. This group talks about how cool the Death Star is and how everyone should be afraid of it. Then they give Vader crap about not finding the plans or the rebel base. Yet this one guy makes fun of the Force, and that's when he gets mad on the way to Anchor Point. They run into a Jawa convoy that were all killed. Luke puts 2 and 2 together and figures out that they know who bought the droids and are going after his family. He then stupidly leaves the Jedi Knight and army general out in the middle of nowhere to try to save his aunt and uncle from Imperial stormtroopers. And when he arrives, seeing that the house is on fire, he doesn't grab his gun to defend himself. Turns out he's too late anyway. And stormtroopers have barbecued his aunt, and Uncle Luke goes back to find our 2 and 3 below burning Jawas, and he tells Obi-Wan he'll go with them. Now there's nothing holding him back. They then had the Mos Eisley to find a ship to take them. And Calderon stormtroopers are looking for the droids, but only one uses the Jedi mind trick on them, and they let him go. They head to a bar where they're racist towards droids, and random people try to pick fights. Luke's in trouble, so Obi-Wan pulls out his lightsaber and chops off the guy's arm. So now Luke thinks he's the coolest guy ever. They meet up with his pilot, Han Solo, who's got some money issues, and his first mate, Chewbacca. This guy Greedo has come to collect on a bounty, and he tells Han McCluskey, which is Rodian for "I'm going to shoot you in the face now." But they both shoot, and Han kills him. They head to the Millennium Falcon, but this plague doctor rots them out. And now the Imperial forces are after them, even though they're being chased. Luke still finds a way to annoy Han. Back on the Death Star, Leia is brought to Grand Moff Tarkin, since she hasn't cooperated even when they drugged her. He threatens to blow up Alderaan if she doesn't tell him where the rebel base is. She tells him where it is, and he tells her it's too far away and no one would see it. So he's still going to blow up her home planet. Luke is learning to use his lightsaber by getting shot at. Obi-Wan wants him to use the Force to not get shot, so he hands him a helmet that has a screen you can pull down if you know a bomb's going to go off. Obi-Wan keeps telling him he's doing well, but right now he's got about as much skill as a Jedi preschooler. They get to where Alderaan should be, but get caught in a tractor beam that's pulling them into the Death Star. Darth Vader comes to the ship and says that he can feel a presence. The crew head in some smuggling containers and take out some guards so they can take their uniforms. They need to turn off the tractor beam to escape. So Obi-Wan heads off to do that while they're bored. R2 sniffs through the computer to find out the Leia is on board and is about to be executed. Luke wants to save her. The Han doesn't want to go, so he tells him that she's rich, but leaves out the part where all her money was on a planet that just blew up. So the plan is to handcuff Chewbacca and pretend he's a prisoner. They go to the detention center where they kill all the guards and shoot out the cameras. Luke goes to get the princess, who notices that he's short. Well, all the stormtroopers are clones, so they should all be the same height. And somehow she's the only one on this military base to see it. Darth Vader senses Obi-Wan's presence and wants to kill him for cutting his limbs off and setting him on fire. All of the stormtroopers know that they're breaking out, so they're forced to jump into the garbage chute to escape an octopus that lives in the trash. Grabs Luke, the hand can find him in knee-deep water. He barely moves a couple of things out of his way and kind of gives up until he pops back up. Apparently, this thing has a place to hide when the compactor turns on. They try to get 3PO on the radio, but he turned it off and the stormtroopers came. So this dumpster is just full of construction crap, metal, plastic pipes, stuff that has no give. But somehow they managed to stay in the middle of it and not get crushed. I guess only the walls can do that. R2 comes through though, and shoots it off before they die. Obi-Wan gets to the tractor beam controls and should sit down. They head back to the ship, but stormtroopers are waiting. John decides to chase them down the hall, but ends up being a trap. They chase him and Chewie, but close the blast doors. After they go through, Obi-Wan turns a corner to see Vader waiting on him. And he's like, "I'm the master now." But he seems to have forgotten something. So do you remember the epic fight that they had on Mustafar? This is nothing like that. They're kind of just banging their swords together. Honestly, I've seen more badass fights with 2 kids and some Christmas wrapping paper tubes. Well, they're like, "Damn, we got old, didn't we?" And Obi-Wan's like, "Killing me will only make me stronger. So the rest of you up to the Falcon." But there are stormtroopers guarding it. But then they see Vader and Obi-Wan in this epic clash of the Titans, and they go to watch. So now they're able to get on the ship. All sneaky, like. But then Obi-Wan lets Vader kill him. And Luke yells, giving away their position. The stormtroopers open fire on them while Vader tries to squash Obi-Wan. Apparently he's just a ghost now and tells Luke to run since he was just standing in the open getting shot at. They take off, and Leia, who just lost everyone she ever knew, consoles Luke, who just watched the creepy local hermit who he only talked to for a few hours die. The Han comes in and tells them that they're being followed. So now it's time to shoot some TIE fighters that don't seem to return much fire. Leia thinks that they're being tracked, so she tells Han to go to the secret rebel base anyway because she has the plans for the Death Star and thinks it might show a weakness that they can exploit. Weakness that they can exploit. John demands to get paid for saving her. And she storms off. Luke comes in and as Han, if he likes her, he says no. So Luke's like, mind if I go for that? But it's okay, because Han's like, oh, well, if you like her, then I like her, so they get to the moon that their base is on. The Death Star shows up on the other side of the planet and they jump into its orbit instead of just blowing up Yavin and letting either the blast or the sudden gravity shift take out the rebels on the moon. But this gives the rebels enough time to find a weakness in its exhaust port. All the pilots are like, that's impossible. But looks like, yeah, that's just like when I used to murder small animals back home. The meeting lets out. And Luke finds Han packing his crap to get out of there. He wants to pay off Jabba the Hutt, the gangster that runs the pod races. And Luke calls him a selfish ass. And Han's like, I wanna live, dude. Luke tells Leia that Han is leaving, and she's like, and? But Luke thought they were best friends. And then he starts missing Obi-Wan again. So she kisses him to shut him up. And then he's like, do you know how hard it is to fly with a boner? He bumps into his buddy from back home. But there's other guys like, are you sure you're a good enough pilot to go on the suicide mission? They want to give him another droid, but he's got a weird attachment disorder and claims R2 is his new best friend. He probably also thinks that he's dating Leia now. But they get in their X-Wings and head to the Death Star. They have to go down this narrow trench. But first they have to get past these turbo lasers. Some of them do. So they send out some TIE fighters to go head to head. A lot of them are getting shot down, including this guy who the last thing he hears is his friends calling him fat. The TIE fighters are just blown up, left and right. So Vader goes himself. The gold team gets in the trench, but Darth Vader is hot on their tail. He takes some guy out and another is like, let's get out of here. But the gold leaders, like, I don't care if you want to live. You're on a suicide mission, and then Vader kills them. Now it's red team's turn. Red leader goes down and his wingmen get taken out. He gets a shot off, but misses and then does. Now it's Luke's turn. This stabilizer's out. 2 South African Rand is trying to fix it, but Obi-Wan's like, dude, use the Force to help with the targeting system. So he turns his computer off, and everyone at the base is like, dude, we're all about to die. And you're the last one left. What the hell? On top of that, Theater's right behind them and is close enough to shoot R2. So the Death Star's in firing range of the moon and Vader is about to shoot. Luke Mahone shows up and hits a 710 split with Vader's wingmen and sends them flying off somewhere. Luke takes a shot, and I guess space torpedoes can turn because the portal is aiming for is on the ground. And of course he makes it and blows up the Death Star right before it fires on the rebel base. Sally wants to reward Lucan and Chewie for their bravery, so she gives Luke and John medals. Oh, he's too tall. They are too. So. Okay. Subscribe, my little friend.